And that's how you do it. Da 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 da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple minutes, get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never popped into one of my lives before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside, and we have been exploring the inside. We're coming up on a year working on this project. I didn't realize it was going to be a project. I actually thought it was going to be content for my brand. I thought that I was going to do a little bit of a podcast and bring my spiel online, not recognizing, that whoever or whatever had different plans for what I had plans for. And yeah, we got into it. And this week we got a really great word, and we got that word perseverance. And it's something that it's kind of like that idea. Quite often I talk about, I've never missed a day of work in my entire life. Sometimes it's in that stubbornness. I recognize that there are days that maybe I would prefer to stay at home or go for a walk or go visit my sisters or go to the mall, get into the air conditioning. Oh my goodness, it's so hot here in Winnipeg, Manitoba. I suspect it's pretty hot in a lot of places in North America right now, right? Not complaining in that, grateful to be able to make a little bit of movement despite it being so uncomfortable because it does drag me out. The heat is something I've never had much of a tolerance for. I personally prefer the cold. I'd be good with it being 40 below zero consistently, right? Rather than 40 above zero consistently. And that's the truth. And partly it's because of this digital age. It allows me to be a spectator. It allows me to make movement and have adventures and experiences vicariously through other people who are having these experiences. And at the same time, right? These experiences that I'm having, right? I am optimistic, and I know because people have been hanging out with me for so long that I've gotten a little bit of an idea of, what they would really like to watch. And it is those outdoor adventures. Who wants to be on the inside? Who wants to be stretching and expanding and butting heads with our own ideas and our own beliefs, but seeing the evidence and right having new perspectives be able to seep into our systems. I think that's pretty amazing. I think for a very, very long time, decades, possibly lifetimes, I've had perspectives, right? Kind of added to my life, like ingredients to that recipe, right? Not making my own recipe, but just letting everything and everyone add into that batch. There wasn't, right? Because everybody's going to just throw all that stuff that they don't want. Throw that scrap across the table for Cindy, right? She'll eat it. She'll eat anything, right? No, this is not the way that I want to live. This is not the way anybody should live. But yet, big part of the population, right, moves that way, lives that way, exists that way, and takes along everybody in their vicinity, in their environment along for that ride. I've been doing it for far too long now, like I said, and I am grateful for the lessons that come across my path. But that's in my perseverance of not giving up. It's in that stubbornness to say, "Oh my goodness, look how far I've come. I could be this close," right? Being that cheerleader for myself, being that cheerleader for myself because I'm doing stuff that probably a lot of people are not interested in doing, but because I picked up the that baton, because I owned it and I own it, right? Everything that I was able to grasp onto, that I was able to absorb, that I was able to understand as a truth and possibly solution or a little bit of comfort or understanding, right? Grateful for that. But it was in my own perseverance, my own choice to just keep going, even when I didn't understand, even when I didn't get it. I would just keep moving with that. And lots of people, they do that because they're not left with a lot of choices. They're not the giving up kind, right? They'll look for anything, right? They'll grasp at anything. They'll question and speculate and, right? Adapt and conquer. And sometimes they'll just move for the fact of moving, right? Lots of times I sense, right? I'm being asked to stall myself out or to take a break. But, especially in this past year when I stumbled onto this idea of making your reward, and I find, what I'm doing for myself right now is a reward. And even though I might not see all the benefits in this moment, I see enough of those benefits to, right, make me want to persevere, to make me want to, right, go a little bit further, adapt, conquer, push myself a little bit more, right? But knowing that I'm no good to anybody unless I take care of myself. And that was a big lesson in the past year for me, right? Still, right? Don't give me no blue ribbon. Don't give me no gold medal, right? Don't give me one of those participation gold patches. Don't do that. I'm struggling in that. I'm persevering. I'm not giving up. But my situation, right, dictates where I'm at in the moment, right? Sometimes that moment stretches on to another year, another 180, another 90-degree, another 360, which finds us right back in the beginning where we started. But even when we do start at the beginning, we picked up things along the way. And this is the way that I look at it. And this is the little bit of feed that I give myself when I feel like, right? Well, it's been a long time since I felt that way, right? I do procrastinate. I do sometimes push it to the very last minute. I do self sabotage, right? But I always show up. I am always accountable, right? I don't like to let people down, and I don't like to be fail in those goals that I set for myself, or that I've kind of lived by, those kind of rules that I live by, and I don't like to fail by those. And I don't know if it's because, right, somebody might see me fail, or that's too big of a fail that I could handle. That would be a doozy for me, not showing up, right? Maybe it's the guilt and shame, right? Because that was the programming I grew up on, and right. And I'm not kicking the those emotions of guilt and shame, because those emotions are the heads up of, do you really want to do that, Cindy? Did you really have to say that, Cindy? Right? Do you need to apologize? Right? If you can't apologize, is there some way that you can make up for that? Right? Cindy, really? Guilt? Shame? Right? You forgot to do the dishes before you went to bed. And you're beating yourself up over that? Right? Because sometimes these feelings come up and we just accept the feeling and we try and skirt ourselves out of that feeling as fast as we can. But if we can kind of sit with it for a minute, we could sometimes, quite often, see the silliness in it. We can see the uselessness in that guilt and shame. And we can see the untruth of it in the guilt and shame. Those are amazing lessons. I would much rather do that than skirt myself away from it, right? That instant pain relief, that instant aggravation relief, right? That that instant frustration, that instant panic mode that we have, that's instantly taken off of us. But it's going to come right back because we didn't do anything to help alleviate it. All we did was smother it out like a fire blanket, right? Just kind of smothered it out. And there are embers. We all know there are embers in there, right? And I was just thinking, bring it back to perseverance, Cindy. And then I'm just thinking, but that is the perseverance, right? There is the perseverance because we don't always get it right. And sometimes because right, we want to step out of that uncomfortableness as fast as we can. Sometimes in that perseverance of, right, okay, I stepped out of it that time, right? I only stood up to it for 5 minutes, but it got me. But if you brush yourself off and try again, maybe next time you can do it 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, right? And that's just holding it off. That's not thinking about it. You still want out of it, right? But you committed. You're stubborn, right? You can take the pain. You can take the frustration, right? You can take the untruth. But can you take the untruth? Mm-hmm. Right? I'd much rather deal with that. And I'd much rather sit with it for a couple of minutes and say, where did that come from? Where did that guilt and shame come from? Right? Was it something silly that you got called on? Right? And there's that risk of being called on in the minute, or somebody catching you in the act, or seeing you fail, or worse yet, seeing you not even try. I'd much rather think about it. I'd much rather Spend a few minutes, spend a half an hour, spend a whole week. Like that powerful word that we picked this week, perseverance. Because that's what it is. That's what keeps us going because right, lots of us would much rather be laying on the beach drinking pina coladas. That's not me. But I tell you, if you give me a pretty landscape and a rock, I could get lost in it for hours. Definitely I could, right? Skirt it off a little bit. Or I could sit on that rock and look off into the landscape, feeling safe, feeling comfortable, feeling calm and content with my life in the moment. And let myself slip in, right? Why was I feeling that guilt and shame, right? That was so silly. I beat myself up for decades. I let myself be triggered for decades, right? And I could have resolved it just by understanding it. But I spent too much time just skirting it, right? Just trying to alleviate it for the moment. And you know what happens when we try to alleviate the pain, right? In not the right way. Do it in the wrong way. I made an ice cream, chocolate fudge ice cream cake for my sister's birthday. I couldn't put the final ice on it. I wanted to complete it and get it in the freezer, but it's so hot today. I don't know what it was into me that I thought I should have baked the cake like a week ago and picked a nice cool day to get it iced and decorated and stuff, but it is what it is. So I turned up the freezer, I cranked it so that ice cream cake is going to be like a brick by morning. I'm going to whip up my icing super, super fast, have it all ready, pull that cake out of the freezer, ice it all up, throw it back in the freezer, and then get it to my sister's house and into her freezer as quickly as I possibly can, right? Sometimes it's those ingredients that we throw it into our lives, right? I had things that I could have been doing for myself, right? In my stubbornness, in my need to make a little bit of movement for myself. But I am a caregiver. I am a caregiver. I'm a caregiver in this moment for my coworkers, for my sisters, my nieces, my nephews, for my neighbors, the people that live in the building with me, right? But a caregiver for myself at the same time, right? And I just didn't realize that that was something that I was supposed to persevere in, right? I have no idea how some of these things come across my path, but I'm certainly glad that they have because, right, I am making some movement. I'm still here. My brand is still thriving, right? We're talking 7 years after it should have just totally crashed. It looks totally different. I look totally different. I feel totally different. My brand feels totally different, but it feels right. And it only feels that way because I persevered. Because I tell you, there are so many times that I could have had that choice. And I did have that choice just to give up in that. And there wasn't a chance, even way back then. And if way back then I wasn't giving up, you think 10 years later that that's even an option? No, it's not. So we persevere. We keep moving on. And I will be back tomorrow with this word, perseverance. I got a good sweat going on. I'm going to make myself something cool to drink. Check on that ice cream cake and see if that freezer is cold enough because there's a couple of more degrees that I can crank it if I have to. That cake is happening one way or another. You guys have a great night, and we'll see you